Peace. Hope you guys are having a great beginning to your weekend. As always, I am certified player of Brooklyn with a live stream to start off on said weekend and talk about what's going on in the world today. I haven't been able to tune into much of what happened today. I'm actually trying to get my stream working though. As I was saying, I haven't read as much news as I normally get to read today. I'm trying to make sure my live stream is working. Do forgive me, people. But some significant things did happen. I don't know, like a lot of, and I only mention it too because I hear a lot of people that I listen to that are not necessarily finance channels, if you want to put it that way. Um, I'm hearing a lot of people talk about precious metals um, reaching their all-time high, like recently. And I looked at it earlier today, and it was the price was did reach an all-time high. It did hit in the triple-digit marker, and trying to make sure my stream's working out by looking at it on my TV. But that's those rumors were true when I looked at it earlier today. I think gold almost hit 5 grand, and as far like I think it's an indication of the fact that the finances of not only the country America or the American dollar are not doing as well as people may think, but also the finances of the whole world. Hey, Julian, thank you for coming through. And I mean, if I were to be an investor at this current juncture, where there is an indication of record high in precious metal prices. I mean, what would somebody like that has accessible money be invested in? Like, or what would be the better way to invest? I did a little bit of research too in that department as far as precious metals, and it seems as if the highs that I've been that the high that I saw today has been happening here recently, like in terms of like silver, for instance. It would, like, when I looked at the charts, it was a doubling of price since like December, if I remember correctly. I mean, and then I looked at the gold charts, and it's kind of been a steady climb. So I don't know what to make of that. I mean, like, if it would be, and I looked at the price of Bitcoin too. I mean, I'm not like a crypto investor. This is not investment advice either. I think I've heard other channels say such. But where would an investor go? I mean, when you have these things that we've never seen happen, um, at least in my lifetime, like a embargo or naval embargo like we have happening right now off the coast of Venezuela, a potential naval embargo off the coast of Canada. I mean, Canada seems as if after the Davos meeting, if there was any nation that made it seem as if they had an issue with the United States or with Trump, it was Canada, and Canada happens to be our neighbor to the north. Not that America should fear Canada. I think Canada should fear America. But it seemed, I mentioned this yesterday. I mean, like a lot of the European nations, they made statements and then kind of like retracted statements that were, opposing Trump, and then most of them retracted and caved in. There's rumors that a lot of the European nations are like now more open to the idea of giving Greenland to the U.S. after Trump showed up at the Davos meeting. But um, I forgot the name of the Canadian Prime Minister. It's not Keir Starmer. Um, he seemed to have jumped the gun. The Canadian Prime Minister, that is. I think it's Mark something, and Mark Carney, and what said negative things regarding the U.S. and Trump, and now he's kind of like stuck with it. And he made a commitment to deal with China at least in the near future, which is what I mean. I think France did something similar too, but France is across the ocean, and Canada is not separated from America by anything. You could walk to Canada. My state of New York touches Canada. So potentially you could see an embargo off the coast of Canada, like where Trump could say, listen, I'm not going to allow Canada to receive goods from other nations. I mean, like, and who's to stop him? Like, who, like, Europe is going to send like a non existing navy, like, to the coast of America, like, to try to help, like, relieve Canadian embargo by the U.S.? I don't think so. And I only say that to say in the sense of like these prices of precious metals that have been going up here recently. I mean, I would be very hesitant to like to make an investment in the stock market or in cryptocurrencies when we're fast approaching a new world. I mean, like, we're literally like stepping into the future in 2026. I say that a lot in this channel. 2025 did not feel like a leap into the future. 2025 felt, as far as the Trump administration goes, as in the first steps of trying to get us ready for stepping into the future. Now 2026, we're stepping into the future, and I think it's gonna feel that way next year as well. And in order, I feel, for America to make a leap into the future, I mean, we're gonna have to ruffle some feathers internationally, and it may not end with America taking Greenland only, which I think is an inevitability. Like, I think America will oversee the running of Greenland, if not have possession of Greenland outright in the next calendar year. I could totally see that. But I could also see America flexing his muscle in Latin America, or the United States flexing their muscle more in Latin America. Kinetic action in Mexico, or um, the same thing that happened to Maduro to happen to the Colombian president. Even though he's out the door, the Colombian president, I think, is about to get elected out. Like, they have an election upcoming. Um, Life Junkies World. How you doing? Cool name. I hope you're not a junkie in real life, though. My brother, and I'm only saying that because I have a family that are junkies. It's not fun. But glad you're doing good, Life Junkie. Um, so what we have happening, I mean, like, where would I rather invest? Would I rather invest into this world that's contending in like something like cryptocurrencies or in Nvidia stocks, or would I rather invest in, precious metals that seem to be going up at a really rapid rate that hasn't happened before? Like, it didn't happen in a really good economy that we supposedly had these last I mean, it seems like the last 10 years, like they've been telling us that we're in a great economy regardless of who the president is. It certainly doesn't feel that way, but in spite of that, whether they want to say that it was a bad economy under Biden, which I think it was, or great economies under Trump and Obama, um, didn't seem as if the price of precious metals were moving up during those times. The price of cryptocurrencies moving up at a rapid rate, I mean, I think is more of a one off. I mean, long term, I don't know may what that might be a product of. I mean, besides the dying of the US dollar. But again, I mean, most people don't know what crypto really is, and I don't either. But the fact that throughout, whether it be a bad economy, good economy, precious metals haven't really gone up at the rate in which they've been going up recently, especially silver, which is kind of like a dark horse. Nobody mentions it, and now it seems like every day I hear somebody mentioning it. Um, I listen to a lot of YouTube. I love this platform, even though they thwart my channel. But every day while listening to YouTube for like the past couple weeks, somebody mentions silver specifically on a YouTube channel that has nothing to do with finance, nothing to do with precious metals. I listen to a lot of boxing YouTube, for instance, or stuff about baseball. On the boxing YouTube channels that I listen to, a lot of them are like more open format and people could discuss anything. A lot of times people discuss politics outside of boxing. But like I said, and most of those channels, I mean, I think most people right now are feeling as if something's set to break in terms of the world in general. Um, maybe potential war or some wide scale event. I just, especially, I mean, it felt that way today, especially, like, I don't know if it's because the storm hit New York, but I do think that people are getting ready for life in America and throughout the world changing here soon. But maybe that's what's causing, average people, at least on YouTube and in real life too. I'm hearing people in real life, in my travels in real life, mentioning specifically silver or silver's price increase here lately. Like, it seems like it's every day, like the last couple of weeks, like I said earlier. So do with that what you will. I don't know what it means. I mean, again, that's not investment advice for you to go buy silver, sell silver. Um, but I don't know. It is going up though. All time high, triple digits. But let me get into my first topic, and it's our blacks. Are Did I misspell that? Um, are Somalians black? No, I actually worded it properly. A lot of what we're seeing in the protest in Minneapolis and in Minnesota, I've been seeing a lot of liberals or liberal defenders really up in arms about what's happening with the ICE deportations. And I really haven't seen it nationwide riveted up just on the basis of like the fact that now a new community is in the crosshairs of ICE, which is the Somalians in America community. I mean, even though a lot of exposure has been given to the Somalian community recently about a lot of people within that community, whether illegal or not legal, legal or illegal immigrants, from that community, taking advantage of the system in America. I think Dr. Oz was actually visiting a facility in Minnesota today that was like a regular factory building that supposedly had like 300 or more medical facilities in that one building, but it was a scam. Like it was basically a bunch of people that were listed as operating medical care facilities within that warehouse big building, but they're just charging the taxpayer, the American taxpayer money, while having like a ghost address in this big factory building. And I think they said that in 1 year that they um, were charging the U.S. taxpayer like $500 million just from that one building, or some crazy number like that. Don't quote me, but it's a lot. And all that stuff is bogus. I mean, like some moron could try to rationalize it, like, oh yeah, well, what if they take it one point? Like, but give me a break. I mean, people that try to rationalize things like that, they do it mostly because they hate Trump. Like they just want to play the devil's advocate, and I don't have time to really listen to those kind of debates. I will, like, when I do my open panel, so yeah, soon. But the and a lot of those people that would present an argument like that are the same kind of people that are getting mad that these ICE operations are happening more frequently. But what I haven't been seeing, I mean, and again, like with the fact that you now have a new community being targeted, i.e., the Somalians, mostly of Minnesota, you are seeing a little bit more frequency of anti-ICE, protesters or sentiment at large, if you will. But one thing I haven't been seeing is so-called black people in America um, coming out and proclaiming Somalians as their kin, if you will. Like, even though I think it's a misnomer, the fact that a lot of so-called Black Americans are titled as African Americans. So-called Black Americans don't have zero to do with Africa, and Africans don't have squat to do with so-called Black Americans neither. But you in the Somalian community are witnessing the fact that this African community that's in America, that has a large presence in America now, being targeted by um, ICE agents or ICE operations. And one would think that there's a large affinity for the liberals or Democrats and their causes by the so-called Black America. But that may or may not be true. I think, honestly, recently, a lot of so-called black people are turning their backs on the Democratic Party. A lot of so-called black people are actually aligning with Donald Trump, at least more than there was in the past. But what you're not seeing in mass is a lot of so-called black people riding for this Somalian community. In fact, I see a lot of so-called black people, whether that be mostly online, shitting on these Somalian dudes. Like, actually taking joy in the fact that they're getting deported, especially now that um, you are now finding out that this Somalian community has been stealing from the American taxpayer by way of these medical scams and welfare fraud. I've heard that up to 70% of the Somalian community, whether illegal or legal, are on some sort of public assistance. Um, but you know, I've actually heard people within the Somalian community on the internet or online actually asking for a truce or an alliance with the so-called Black community of America. And I mean, I'm hand to the Bible, I haven't seen much in the way of seeing like so-called black people saying, these are all brothers from Africa. They ain't saying any of that. Now, is it some sort of distaste for Somalians specifically? I mean, I think that might be the case. I mean, I wouldn't see, if it were like Nigerians that got busted for doing something like that. I mean, granted, I don't think that every so-called black person would ride out for like Nigerians or something. But I could see a large presence of so-called black people trying to, maybe claim some affinity for Africa as being a motherland, because a lot of them do identify as African American, which is again a misnomer. But but I do think that there does exist a um, a little bit of anonymity, I guess I would say, or a little bit of distaste from the so-called black community towards the Somalian community in America. And I don't think that's all relegated to the fact that a lot of these stories have come out recently in with the discovering that these schemes have been happening by the Somalian community. I think a lot of it, one, the Somalian community is very tribalized. They don't want shit to do with not only so-called black Americans, but with anybody else in America. I mean, even though their goddess Ilhan Omar is married to a white dude, but it's do as I say, not as I do. As radical as she is and anti-white, Ilhan Omar, when it came down to choosing a mate, you know, um, she went for white gack. But with and most of these liberals, most liberal African Americans that are in politics, you got Don Lemon. He's with a white dude. Kamala Harris, I think she's with a white Jewish man. Ketanji Brown Jackson, she's with a white dude. Um, there's many of them. I mean, there's many so-called black politicians that are at the precipice of being, you know, pro-black and social justice warriors, or constantly highlighting, the fact that white Americans are bad people, or the problems with the fact that America has a white population. Yet a lot, when it comes to them choosing a partner in their personal life, they're between the legs or opening their legs for white people. You know, the hypocrisy knows no bounds. Yet again, I mean, again, part of it is that the world is changing, and I think so-called black people, um, I've said it, or in my thoughts, I've many times have said here on YouTube too, on other panels, that we're living in a period in which so-called black people are probably doing damn near their worst, and it could only get better from around this time period, when you got like the distaste between that the men give the women and the women give their own men. Um, the fact that not many, want to choose to be domesticated, men and women, like, or build families. But in spite of that, I mean, I see many examples of my so-called black brothers doing just the opposite, like building families and trying to do right. Again, because in a sense, it's like a little bit of a waking up out of what's happened in the past, I would say like 50 years. But um, With that though, I think if this would have went down with the Somalians like in the 90s, I think there probably would have been a lot more people up in arms about like ICE operations targeting Somalians. Um, I definitely think in the early 2000s there would have been a lot more so-called black people putting aligning themselves with the Somalian community. But in 2026, I'm actually seeing a lot of rancor from the so-called black community towards the Somalians, and it's actually hilarious. Heard somebody a video in which a so-called in which a Somalian woman was calling for a truce between the Somalians of America and the so-called Black Americans, and she's saying that like they're under duress and like that there's an enemy in sight type of deal, and a guy reacted to it and said like like f y'all like puff the Diddy looking MFers with their oversized foreheads, and he's going in on them and saying that um all these times that they've been saying that they're not black, and now all of a sudden they want to try to unite with so-called black people. In addition to the fact that these people are scheming, there's money that could have gone to so-called black people. I go to Patterson, New Jersey frequently now, and I mean, if whenever I see panhandlers, 1 out of 2 chances is gonna be a so-called black person or a so-called Latin dude. I don't know what got them to panhandling, but if it came down to America giving money to one of these panhandlers that are so-called black, that are of America, or to give it to some illegal or even illegal Somalian immigrant, I would give it to the panhandler 100 times out of 100. I don't care what situation a so-called Somalian dude from that's not of America is under. Like, I don't care if they all dip. Honestly, I'm rooting for ICE on this one. I mean, it may sound curt, but again, and I've had the experience. Actually lived in Washington D.C. and the Northern Virginia area. Somalian dudes ain't messing with anybody. Like, especially the men. Dudes are haters, big time haters. Like vigilant, cock blocking type dudes, man. The hell out of here. And everybody says that about them. Ain't nobody saying like, oh, I met this Somalian chick and all her family was accepting of me. These dudes like greasy ass like dudes, they have a distaste for everybody in America, especially so-called black dudes from what I've seen. And they look at what they got going on as if like they're the shit. And I mean, this is from my experience. Again, I mean, you may be like the mayor of Minneapolis, that Jewish guy, Mayor Fry, and you may have a ton of great experiences with the Somalian community, but I haven't heard much in the way of even liberal white people like saying how great this community is. But again, I mean, going back to that too, I mean, it seems like the only alliance that the Somalians of Minneapolis have are either radical liberal left and left people, and an alliance with white women, and that's it. I mean, I don't see anybody riding for these people, and um, it's with good reason. I don't even think that. I think that so-called black people would probably ride for Mexicans if they're the targets of ICE, more than they would you know the Somalian community. And that's just what I'm seeing. I see a lot of people like so-called black people on YouTube or on the internet being very pessimistic of any of the claims that a lot of this community has been making as far as their mistreatment of ICE, or as far as their innocence in regards to being called out for scheming the American taxpayer. And it's great to see. I'm not so-called black by blood. I have a lot of family that's so-called black, um, but when so-called black people do well, I feel very proud. Feel like it's my own kind acting right. And again, I mean, there's more like things could only get better as far as the community goes. Um, and you know, even if it's a fraction of people that aren't falling for the BS no more, I didn't even notice a fraction when I was coming up. Let's say, like it'd be people that could get shut down because they were such a small presence. I mean, like whereas now it seems like a lot of people, want to do right more than I've ever seen. Whether that be by themselves, they're not just not broadcasting it, and it's good that I don't see like my so-called minorities in general broadcasting much of their victories, or trying to shit on the next man, thinking that they're doing better than the next man. Like that kind of nonsense is like getting played out, and it's good to see. I mean, like, but also the whole looking for victims to align themselves with. I mean, at the end of the day, nobody is trying to align themselves when so-called black people are the victim. Besides liberal radical whites, in an effort to weaponize them and or have them run off on a goose chase. At least from my experience and what I've seen in the past. But now, I mean, like from what I'm seeing, I see a lot of in New York. When it comes to ICE targeting the Venezuelan community, let's say, I'm seeing a lot of so-called black people say, "To hell with these Venezuelans," and in that sentiment, when it comes to deportations of that community, I'm with it. I mean, I agree 100%. And now, in January of 2026, I'm seeing the same thing in the so-called black community in terms of a distaste for how Somalians have been operating in America with not only their tribalism, but now um, thievery of American taxpayers' money. Um, in terms of my other topics that I have listed in the title, um, I know it's happening in a broad swath of the country, but there's a let me see how I sound. I know it's happening in a broad swath of the country, but there's a trying to see how I sound on my regular TV. But there's a winter storm that's happening um, throughout much of the Northeast, even down south too. Like in the south, there a large chunk of the country in which people, I mean, which it's reported that there's going to be 12 inches of snow in places that it normally doesn't snow. I think the other day in Atlanta, it was like 28 degrees. But I know in the past, like in places like in North Carolina, if it snows like 2 inches, that shit is like Armageddon. But you're now hearing reports of not only a Arctic, blast of cold that's coming through the Northeast and even parts of the Southeast, the mountain regions of America, South Mountain regions. But also the that there might be like 2 inches of ice on the ground um, for a while. I mean, like here, and I went grocery shopping, like because just in case. Um, Even though I was broke, I had to get a few things. But in the store, I went to two grocery stores today, Aldi and a store called ShopRite that they have in New Jersey. And in both the stores, there was very, very little water that was available. I mean, like, in the Aldi, there was one pack and it was all crushed and I didn't take it. But luckily, in the other store I went to, there was probably like 20 packs and I grabbed three of them. And, there was a sense of desperation in the air, like, in both stores. Everywhere I went to today, like driving, like, I just feels very. There's just days like that where it just feels like the whole world is on some shit. And today was one of those days. I mean, like, I don't know if it was because it was Friday. Maybe it has to do with the fact that the storm was happening. Um, Seemed to be a lot of chemtrails today too. I mean, like, some people say there's a correlation with that and people acting angry. I don't know if that was the case. Um, but I think a lot of people are worried about this storm that's set to hit America. I think the president just put out a Truth Social post or some sort of post um, saying that he's been briefed on the storm and for people to stay safe, something to that effect. I just read it right before I started the stream. So I'm in. If you live in one of the affected, I mean, and in the town that I live in, and here in New Jersey, I mean, everybody's mourning about. It's the big story that's happening now. So I mean, if you live in one of the affected areas, stay safe. Um, this weekend seems like it's going to be some BS. So again, I mean, hopefully you have extra water, food, whatever. And let me get to my and you know, um, actually that is my last topic. But with that, I mean, I only put NYC because it's affecting NYC. Even though I am certified player of Brooklyn, um, I actually live right outside of New York City, like about less than 10 miles. But it's affecting what affects New York City affects the suburb in which I live currently, and I still get New York City news locally. Um, so I mean, yeah, and it's a big topic in New York too. But with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend. In terms of like the protest, I don't know if you guys heard. I covered the Don Lemon um, arrest warrant that was issued in terms of his church protest. A radical judge actually intervened in that case, in addition to a couple of other protesters that were arrested. Don Lemon and the other protesters that were had a warrant out for their arrest. Those warrants were issued by the Department of Justice, no less. But some radical judge in Minnesota dismissed it um, because it's Trump's Department of Justice, and these radical leftist judges are very prone to try to block a president's agenda. Although, I mean, how often does that happen, even with a comatose president like Biden? Like, how many radical judges intervene and try to stop Biden in terms of the mandates or opening the border? Never happens. But when it's Trump's Department of Justice, I mean, like, you frequently see these judges um, jumping out the window and putting their own reputations at risk in order to try to stop something that they think would benefit Trump. And I mean, I think we need in this country, like, for these radical judges to be impeached. I mean, I think President Bukele of Salvador mentioned the fact that his country got up and running once again. I mean, Salvador was a shithole, but it's now the one of the better countries in South America today, or Central America, wherever it is. But he mentioned the fact that a lot of judges had to go in order for that to pop off. Brazil probably needs the same thing, but America, it's good that sometimes, like, we get to see these judges making these moves on the basis of their own politics and their own TDS, anti-Trump way of moving. But you know, if it's something that could be fixed in the future, but maybe America has to see, that these things do happen on the basis of politics. It would. I have faith that Trump would be the best president to try to rectify this kind of behavior for our future generations, not to be mired in this kind of a political atmosphere happening from behind a judge's bench. Well, with that, I'm gonna break out. I'll probably do that live stream tomorrow, like the open panel. I'll see how I feel. But I got a few things to do. But with that, if you guys are in the area that's gonna be affected by the storm, stay safe. Nevertheless, regardless of where you are, I do hope you enjoy your weekend. Don't get in trouble. And thank you for stepping into the Foul Playland. As always, I am Sir Foul Player of Brooklyn on my new channel called Behold. Peace.